Alright guys, Bloodboy here to play some more Ratchet and Clank 2 as we have Ratchet running in slow motion. If you would like to open iTunes and play the Chariots of Fire, you are free to. And I'll just ruin that for you. Man, I was just watching this video on YouTube, right? It was like a philosophy video, and it was explaining basically how people are basically like assets, like any other asset, and we're basically like farm animals. In that the farmers, or the ruling elite, own us and treat us like property and such. But it went a lot more intricate than that. It wasn't just some guy being cynical; it was quite serious. Into like the stages of human ownership, like first like full-on slavery, like Egyptians. The Egyptian ruling class and the pharaohs using slave labor, and how inefficient that was because physically tormenting us and restricting us in that way made us less efficient workers. And then it went on to like, I think it would have been medieval times after that, maybe? We were granted a little bit more in terms of human rights and freedom, but still not very much. Then it moved on to like the Industrial Revolution, where we could like pick our own employment, and we're given a much stronger illusion of freedom than before. And these increases in freedom made us more productive because it made us feel better. It was like it's basically a placebo effect. To make us feel as though we're in control, such that we'll be content and we'll continue to show up at jobs on time, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and do what's got to be done. It's more of, I guess, an intellectual and emotional and mental slavery than we realize, and it's. I guess with the internet, I think we are more aware of this than before, but we're largely ignorant of this, especially in more religious countries. It's not just government and corporations, religion as well, doing the exact same thing. A religion is just a business, right? They're just selling you a product you don't need, or that they have to convince you that you think you need, and that's one of the biggest parts of religion now is marketing. I had a friend, right, and back when I broke up with my girlfriend, or my girlfriend broke up with me. I have to get that the right way around. This friend of mine who I was really close friends with at the time, and I still am friends with, despite what I'm about to tell you. He heard and he was like, "Oh my god, that's horrible. That really sucks for you. You must feel horrible." And I went, "Yeah, I do." And he went, "I know. To take your mind off things, my youth group, which is basically like the youth regiment, if you will, of the church he goes to. Lots of churches have it. Said my youth group's going out for coffee this Friday. Why don't you come along?" And the way I saw it, it was just him getting me out of the house, getting my mind off things, taking me somewhere, and being a good friend. So I'm like, sure. I went to this thing. I went to his church, and the people they looked kind of fruity. I don't mean gay. I mean, I wouldn't have cared to look gay, but they had like really all kinds of different colored hair and all these weird hairdos and things. I'm not saying that's strange, right? That's not the point. The point is that was their idea of rebellion, as far as I could tell. Like, oh look, I can have whatever hair color I want. Like, they think it's some kind of statement. Kind of goes in with what I was talking about just now, the whole illusion of freedom thing. Like, oh, I can look like whatever I want. Isn't God grand? Color my hair whatever I want? Like, yeah, okay. They weren't saying this outright. This is pure conjecture. Very cynical conjecture, I will admit, but it just came off that way to me, that this was their idea of rebellion. That they thought this was cool, or They were making a statement with this. And this was basically the extent, the narrow extent of what little freedom they had, was changing their outward appearance, and they couldn't change what they believed. They were very nice people. I will not bash them because they weren't mean. They weren't mean-spirited. They were nice to me. They didn't really talk to me that much. But they weren't put off by me being there. They didn't even know who the fuck I was. So. And I wasn't. At this point in my life, this was just after I'd become really interested in religion, and I'd become a lot firmer on the fact that I was irreligious and that I was agnostic. I wasn't quite an atheist yet. I was still agnostic, and I didn't really come to a firm decision on whether I thought God existed or not until later on. I was definitely very, very skeptical and very anti-religious at this point, though. None of that showed, though. I'm kind of getting off track, but you know, I'm just trying to set the scene for you. Anyway, we go have coffee, and the people, like the leaders, I guess, the youth leaders, weren't stupid people. They weren't silly. They were intelligent in their own way. They weren't. They probably had no idea about, you know, atheistic issues and things. But with one of them at least, one of them I was talking to, with the friend I went with. They discuss, you know, intelligent things. So they weren't dumb. They weren't thick. At least some of them weren't thick. And it felt inclusive and this, that, and the other. Now, after that, after the coffee ended, I figured we'd just go in the church and hang out. That's just what I figured in my head. I had not been told what would happen after the church bit, after the coffee bit, I beg your pardon. So, anything goes at this point. We went back into the church. He had to... They, like, split off into two groups. Like, one of them went to make food for homeless people or something like that. And the other one went off and organize some music thing. They were doing some concert. Seeing as my friend was a musician, I should say, I stuck with him. And I can't remember the name of the concert, but it was really arrogant. And I mean, because I'm just kind of talking and I can't tell you what the name of it was. I guess you can doubt me, but I remember thinking that name is really arrogant and really off-putting. I can't fucking remember what it is for the life of me. At this point, I was just flicking through shit on my iPod and I just had no idea what to do. I was just sitting around because I couldn't do anything. After that, though, after that ended, they went to Bible study. And this is where shit got kind of heavy for me. Not externally, like, they weren't like this massive argument. Just inside my own head. And they went up to Bible study, and I cannot... They gave us all Bibles. One half of the reason it was really uncomfortable is because I really needed to pee at that point. And I was like, because I was around all these people I didn't know, and I'm really shy, and I didn't want to ask them if I could go to the bathroom. But I mean, eventually I just went, I have to pee, I'm sorry. I just said to my friend, look, I've got to fucking piss. I didn't say that, but you know, I was like, I have to use the bathroom, where is it? I was about to explode. I was just, oh my god. The other half, though, was because of what I was reading. And... wow, really? That's the second time I've done that. I did that on Grelbin. And I did that here. I just found it accidentally. By the way, I've also pronounced Grelbin as Greblin several times. The part 17 I just uploaded yesterday or the day before that. Someone actually pointed out, isn't it Grelbin, not Greblin? And it's spelled Greblin, not Greblin. And I went back and checked it. I'm like, oh my god, that's right. I always thought it was Greblin. We get that way, like, once you read something a certain way, whether you've read it correctly or not, you will continue to read it that way until someone points it out that you're reading it wrong. It's quite interesting. But anyway, back to what I was saying before. We go up to Bible study. I've relieved myself now. half the tension is gone. The other half of the tension was still there because of what we were reading. And I can't tell you for the life of me what subject matter we were reading. Or what the subject of the discussion was. I don't know. I have no idea. I've got no clue. Right? But basically, they had the Bible open on a certain chapter, this certain verse, whatever. They're reading what's on the right page. Book's open, they're reading on what's on the right page. I am reading what's on the left page. What was on the left page was fucked up. It was saying, like, submit to your king, submit to your masters, submit to God, this, that, and I'm just seeing the word submission and submit, and being anti-authoritarian and anti-control at that point. Not liking control and not liking being controlled, especially when when it's that overt. I'm just sitting there going, I beg your pardon? I didn't raise this with the dude, I wasn't about to raise this with the guy. I'm just sitting there reading, not listening to whatever the fuck they're talking about, just reading this. Just going, no? Let's step back for a minute and just look at this skeptically for a moment. Why are you asking me for complete and total submission? Exactly. And that's part of what I was talking about. Just the ruling elite, and in this case the religious elite, want control. And that's how they did it in those days. A lot more overt than they do now. Of course, it was still covert back then, and it still is now a little bit, with the religious conviction that you're not submitting to a human authority, but you're submitting to this all-powerful deity, whose authority you can't question. So it is still a little bit covert, I beg your pardon. I'm getting mixed up between overt and covert. Overt is like blunt, not being hidden. Covert is hidden. Gotta remember that. I'm sorry I also keep pressing L3, yeah, R3 to get the map up. You're probably getting pissed off, but I need to know where these things are. But yeah, I read that, and I think that was the moment it kind of snapped in my head that, nah, this ain't happening. You have officially lost someone completely and totally. I came in here with an open mind, but god damn it, you people are fucking crazy. And they were even talking about maybe Jesus is gonna come back in my lifetime. And I'm like, oh yeah, you keep thinking that. You know? And let's get this straight, right? I don't like labeling people, including myself and including other people. I'm not about to say all Christians are fucking crazy because they think Jesus is going to come back. I was watching another video yesterday by a Christian who didn't believe in the resurrection and things like that. I mean, even the founding fathers of the US, Thomas Jefferson, I remember there was another one whose name I cannot remember, I'll probably put it up on the screen, who were deists. And they didn't believe in the resurrection and things like that. So it's not like anyone who has ever come into contact with the Bible, or anyone who identifies themselves as Christian, or anyone who believes in God, that's what deism is. It's belief in an all-control, or not all-controlling, belief in like a creator, but not, it doesn't interfere, it doesn't intervene, you can't have a relationship with it, that kind of shit. And I can respect that position to a degree. I'm an atheist myself, I don't see a need for it, but at least I can understand the argument, you know. And you're not trying to oppress people with deism. I've never seen an oppressive deist. Atheism can be more militant, in all honesty, with depending on who's pushing it. I'm getting off track. Yeah. So I'm not about to label all Christians crazy. Where is this fucking thing? That's part of the thing I hate about this map. It's really inaccurate, because I'm right on top of where these crystals are, but I can't fucking see them. See, they're here. Now, I'm quite clearly looking at them on the map. When you zoom right in, it kind of makes sense that they're over there. But when I zoom out, they're all the way over there. So, yeah, you gotta kind of zoom in. If you... It's one thing I do like about this, by the way, that Idlemind's actually got right, because you can't see where the crystals are. Excuse me, in the PS2 version. Can't see them. But in this one, you can. So that's actually quite a good thing that they did, because even if you got the map up, and you went back to the desert, you'd be, if you were missing like 1 or 2 crystals, you had to search the entire desert looking for them, but now you don't, which is quite cool. Getting off track again, I apologize. So yeah, it's not like all Christians believe this stuff, but if you seriously think someone rose from the dead, you're fucking insane, right? There's a part of you that's stone cold nuts. Because that thing just doesn't happen, and it doesn't need to happen. You can think Christ is a cool guy, and try to live out his teachings of turn the other cheek, and, you know, love those who do you evil and things like that. I can't remember the exact wording. I really should read the Bible, like cover to cover. But yeah, you don't have to be nuts to accept his ideology, and you don't have to accept his ideology to be nuts. But if you seriously think a guy who is fucking dead and has been fucking dead for the past 2,000 years is going to come back, especially in your lifetime, you are 1, arrogant, and 2, crazy. And that kind of shit just, no. It's irrational, and it's fucking ridiculous. Dead people don't come back. Especially in the you know, 2,000 years ago when medicine was primitive. It was hardly even medicine in those areas. Not really, not compared to what we have now. It's just insane, if you actually believe that. And this friend of mine is not stupid. We both went to a selective high school. He is not dumb. And while it is true that the more educated people are, the less they tend to accept religious dogma. There have been studies done and such that the higher IQ and stuff, or the more intellectual you are, or the higher level education you've received, the less likely you are to remain religious. It's not impossible for people who are educated to still believe the dumbest things, the most insane things. And again, it's a little tiny bit of their belief system that Christ rose from the dead. You don't have to believe he rose from the dead to agree with his teachings and to follow what he said and did, right? But there's not even any point really believing he's gonna come back. It's just crazy. And at that point, I was just thoroughly convinced these people are nuts. Now, getting onto the marketing bit I was getting to earlier. This is going somewhere. I was like, at the beginning when we went into the church, going back before we went into the church itself, when I met him at his house, we talked for a bit about some things, and then we went to the church. When I went through the front door, they had to get my personal details. My phone number, my name, my address. I'm thinking it's just because, you know, it's just a legal thing that they got to do, because there are probably people there who are 17, and I mean, the age of majority is 18, they need these details for protection and things like that. Whatever. I don't care. Wrong was I. Or perhaps partially right was I. No, it's not all what it's about. For an entire year after I went, they sent me letters. I don't live near my friend, right? The selective high school I went to had kids coming in from quite a way up north and quite a way down south. I lived pretty close to the school, but my friend lived not as close, nowhere near as close, so I had to travel a little bit. I had to catch the bus to go to his house. Quite, well, not the back of beyond, but you know. Not exactly nearby either. Alright? So, them advertising to me that I joined their church is kind of redundant, in that I'm not going to anyway because they're too far away. So it was kind of stupid for a start that they sent me this promotional material. But that's what they did. They sent me promotional material. And I kind of regret throwing it out and not saving it, because they were basically sending me all these letters, advertising all these things they did, and advertising the youth group. we'd like you to join blah blah blah. Look at all these activities we do. And nowhere, and I mean nowhere, did it ever mention Bible study. Nowhere did it say things like God bless you and may God be with you and may you find Jesus. Because they're not going to alienate people by writing that shit on their advertising. They're not going to do it. It alienates people. They have to make themselves look sane and look fun, especially for children and adolescents, teenagers who are my age. Because I was 17 at that point. Not that there's much difference between the 17-year-old me and the 19-year-old me. I have learnt quite a bit, but you know, people our age want to have fun. I think we can all agree. And it's just you read, like I did business studies at school. It fits all the marketing templates. You know, they've got the advertising, that they've got the color scheme and the formatting and the language that they're using. It's identical. It's identical. They make it as appealing as they possibly can to lure people in and get them subscribed to the ideology. And they play on your emotions once you're there. Unfortunately, they fucking failed because I did this thing called thinking, which kind of, I guess they weren't expecting. I don't know. And the guy who I guess runs the thing said to me, if you have any questions, ask me. Just feel free to ask me any questions. I'm like, yeah. In my head, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna ask a less biased source for my answers. You know, I'm not indulging you in confirmation bias. Okay, not happening. Probably gonna get hurt here. Come on. Ah, damn, knew it. But yeah, it's just so typical what they do. And the way they have to... It's kind of sad. I mean, you think salvation by itself. Fucking eternal salvation forever. Be best friends with Jesus forever. Is a pretty fucking good advertisement on its own. But no, apparently not. You have to have people on the street preaching this shit because God is so non-apparent to the human masses. He's so bad at reaching out through his mere existence that he has to use his minions to do it for him. Like, my God, how weak a god do you have to be to do that, you know? And it all comes back to that control of people through emotional manipulation and manipulation of what we perceive. It's all what we perceive. It's not what is. It's what we perceive that's important to these people. Because they can manipulate what we perceive. They can manipulate what is to change how we perceive things, and that's what they do. They manipulate the world around them to make things look the way they want them to. They push the coincidences are so unlikely that we have to have a cause and all this stupid bullshit. Completely unsubstantiated bullshit if you study philosophy and science and things like that. And also going back to the fact that my friend invited me to this thing to get my mind off my girlfriend. My ex-girlfriend. My ex-girlfriend was Christian. Does this not seem somewhat counterproductive? And at the time, I was too fucking depressed to think about it. All I could see was my friend trying to help me out, and he's a good friend of mine. And this is why I don't hold this against him, because I do believe there is a part of him, at least a part of him, that said, I'm gonna help my friend out. But I still believe his goal was to take advantage of the fact that I was emotionally vulnerable and use that against me to try and get me to believe what he believed. And that kind of messed with my head. And the way I know this, or the way I guess what confirmed this for me, or what even set this idea from my head, because until this point I didn't believe this. Maybe a month or two later, during exams at my high school, the same friend came up to me and said, hey, how are you, and all this stuff. And said, hey, my youth group's doing this thing up, we're traveling to this place. We're gonna just walk around, do some shopping and stuff. Would you like to come along? And at this point, I just went, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not interested. And for a split second, if I blinked, I would have missed it. For a split second, the look on his face was one of anger. And this is someone who encouraged me to do drama and who I look up to as a performer and an actor. Right? So, it's not like he can't hide this shit. It was real quick. But for a split second, he looked angry.
To use the hover bomb,
and
to launch the bomb, then
the reason he looked angry is not because he was angry at me, and not because he was angry at God. He was angry at himself for having failed his original mission of converting me, or at least luring me into this thing. Because that was his goal the whole time. Right? And what got me, what kind of fucked with my head afterwards was that... See, look, it's a Grelbin. Grelbin. I was wrong. Anyway, what fucked with my head was that me and my girlfriend, by the way, I loved her. I loved the shit out of her. And I put the religion aside. I knew we might not, you know, have sex and things like that, but I mean, it was my first relationship. I was fucking 16 years old. 16, 17. Just, you know, who cares? I get to cuddle and kiss and talk to her, this girl, and it was awesome. It was hardly a sacrifice if I didn't know what it was, you know. And she went to a youth group as well, every Friday. And when she came back, she logged onto MSN and I said, "Hi, how are you? What'd you get up to?" And in every fucking time, she said Bible study. And I couldn't believe I forgot that. You know? I forgot completely. I mean, in the emotional state I was in, I didn't want to think about it, so of course I wasn't going to remember it, but... should have seen it coming. But yeah, it's just so apparent. And I mean, I'm not new to the idea of people being assets to the ruling class. George Carlin's talked about it, talked about the owners of America and things like that. Bill Hicks has talked about it, the ruling elite using the media to keep people docile and apathetic. He's talked about it too. And other comics have talked about it as well. Steve Hughes has talked about it. Jim Jeffries to an extent has talked about it, the religious aspect at least. And many philosophers have talked about it, Karl Marx being a very obvious one. But the video was still frightening. It was still kind of eerie and scary to watch it and listen to this guy. And it didn't... Viewing it with like a critical mind, skeptical mind, it didn't come off as propaganda. Because, I mean, it's true. You look at the data, it's true. He provided a rational basis for all his arguments. As Carlin has, as Hicks has, as Hughes has, as Marx did to an extent. Not that their alternatives were good. There are problems with anarchy and things like that. They're not perfect. No system is perfect. But it is still frightening. So hey, I'll leave you with that frightening thought as we freeze our asses off in this wasteland that is the remnants of human society, even though humans never were here. It's like a 3D screensaver right there. Hey, anyway, I will catch you guys later.